How do you announce new ownership of a salon, spa, or barbershop? Today, we're diving into that very topic with Rob Hines, a well respected consultant for service based businesses across the U.S. My name is Susan Vosh, and I'm the founder of the only beauty industry business brokerage, Salon Spa Connection. If you're thinking about selling your beauty business, or if you're in the market to buy a salon business, make sure to check out Salon Spa Connection's resources for both buyers and sellers. Now that we have that out of the way, please allow me to introduce Rob Hines. Rob, how's it going?
It's going wonderful, Susan. I appreciate you having me on, and what a wonderful service you're offering to the beauty industry.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, and you are extremely helpful in so many different ways. Tell us just a little bit about what you do for business owners.
Sure. There's three main phases of the business or the services that I offer. I offer personal coaching, business consulting, and then training and development programs for groups, teams, and organizations. So I kind of cover the whole gamut from processes to people and then the skills that those people need.
Awesome. Very good. And I'm sure there's a lot of conversations in there that aren't so easy to handle.
There's plenty of conversations that aren't easy to handle. And I think the great thing about our conversation today, Susan, is that we're going to uncover some of the most uncomfortable things that has to do with a lot of the business you do through Salon Spa Connection.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I'm excited to dig into it. I reached out to Rob because I've seen his work in action with several salon owners I personally know. And I feel like Rob is the best person I know to help facilitate difficult conversations in business. And announcing a change in ownership can be one of the most challenging. Telling salon, spa, or barber team members about this transition is one of the most important thing a new owner does to ensure a positive result for all. So let's dig into this topic so you can have the best possible outcome. Rob, is there anything the new and current owner can do to prepare for this announcement?
Well, one of the first things that I would encourage them to do is to have all of their information as accurate as possible and as complete as possible. The one thing that you really want to avoid doing when making this type of announcement is not having answers to people's questions. So, along with doing your research, having all your I's dotted and T's crossed, I also would encourage you to envision what types of questions are you going to get, whether it's from your staff or or your consumer. Have some of those answers at least a little bit researched so you look like you really know what you're doing in this transition.
Very good. How do you feel like this announcement is best handled?
I always believe in clarity, really just being clear, being complete, really not trying to sugarcoat things or hide things, as transparent as you can be. Clarity and transparency are probably two of the bigger players in this type of announcement.
I would agree with that. And so, do you feel like it'd be better in a group setting, or how do you think this should all go down?
That's a wonderful question. So what happens is if we play the telephone game and I reach out to one person and I say, "Hey Susan, here's what's going on," information gets passed and then it gets diluted and misunderstood. These types of things are always better done in a group setting so everybody gets the same message at the same time with the same presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yep. And why start somewhere and then have it trickle down and things get all muddled? I totally agree.
for sure.
So, who do you think should make this announcement?
Well, this depends, but ultimately, the business owners should always be the ones making the announcement. Now, there have been instances where I've had the business owner that's selling make the announcement. I've had it where the new owner coming in has made the announcement. And then I've also had a combination of both the existing and the new owner coming in and making the announcement collectively.
Mm-hmm.
All of those could be successful. I believe the best way to do it is to have all parties involved, and that way everything can be addressed at one time.
I agree with that. And so having the team gather and having both the seller and the new owner make the announcement together, it shows some cohesiveness, I think.
Yeah, it's best case scenario. Now, there are some times, Susan, where that might not be available. However, gathering the entire team of employees, independent contractors, whomever, is helping the business grow, having all of those people in attendance,
Mhm.
and hopefully you can have both parties, the existing and the new party, come into play. But if not, one or the other would be fine.
Right. And hopefully they're already having regular meetings. And so this isn't like, well, what do they want a meeting for?
Well, that also goes back to your first question.
Mhm.
The best way to make the announcement is to come in as prepared as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think that the team members are feeling when this type of transition is made and the announcement is made?
There's multiple emotions here. Now, we'll start on the positive side. Sometimes there's extreme excitement. There might be even a little instant inspiration or motivation. Those are on the good end of things. However, our brains are actually designed for negativity.
Mhm.
So the things that normally come up front are things like fear, skepticism, just being unsure, fear of change, all those types of things. Those are normally the first things that come up. Emotions run really high.
I agree with that. And I think too, and I agree with the fact that they immediately can default to negative just because it is often a surprise. I tell owners it's all about them. Focus the conversation around what their wants and needs are. They kind of don't care what yours are.
Yeah. And two really important things are the information you're giving and then your approach.
Mhm.
A lot of people forget about the approach. How is this going to affect other people? I may have a high level of emotion at the time. So if you could have all of those things in tow as much as possible,
Mhm.
then what you could do is you could give a great message in a very positive, inspiring way, and people will feed off of the
Mhm.
approach that you give them. If you come in really nervous and unsure, you're going to have people more nervous and unsure. If you come in a little more positive and realistic, people may take that part of the approach into their own assessment.
Right, I totally agree. So, how would a new owner handle the fears and skepticism around, like, okay, it's almost like an adoption? How would they best navigate that, do you think?
I'll give you one word and then I'll describe it a little bit.
Okay.
Listening.
Mhm.
Listen to concerns, ask purposeful questions, listen to everything, not only the words that are being said, how they're being said, reading body language, all those communication things that help us be better communicators.
Mhm.
There's no better time to implement those than in a situation where people feel the most stress.
I totally agree. I recently talked to a lady who went through this transition. She's a stylist in a salon. And one of the things she said is that, the new owners asked all of the staff individually, are you happy? What makes you happy? But they didn't ask her. And I thought that was really
Mm.
interesting. First of all, she knew that. So that meant that there were conversations in the salon that were going on about the new ownership. But the fact that she didn't feel like, cared for and invested in, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, what happens a lot, sometimes through the process, things like that get overlooked. I strongly encourage anybody that's coming into the business to make sure that you hit all of the areas that you need to hit all the people that you need to hit, make sure there's nothing missed, because as you and I spoke about a second ago, people will revert to the negative right away. And as soon as one person doesn't get addressed or feel like they've been heard or seen or valued, anything like that, it could actually tear the entire structure down because those things are going to get out in the open.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
the staff talks. We all know that.
Yeah. And you know what? That's anywhere. So cover bases and
Mhm.
make sure you're covering them well. You're taking enough time to make sure that you're addressing everybody and everything as much as possible.
Absolutely. And everybody wants to feel heard and valued.
Abs- that's one of the top things we hear in all types of behavioral science and real life. Yeah.
So what do you think a new owner should expect from the staff after the announcement is made?
Well, after the announcement, it's interesting. There are two extremes that can be expected. One extreme is a multitude of questions, emotional broadcasting, people really putting as much out there as possible, whether it's well thought of or not. The other extreme is silence, which a lot of times is worse.
Mhm.
So within those extremes, they can expect that and everything in between. Again, you have the fear, the skepticism, you may have the excitement and the wondering, hey, what's in store for us now? What could be coming down the pike? With some of these changes, what are the goals for everybody?
Mhm.
So, we have the extremes, which are the norm, and
Mhm.
then the harmony is somewhere in the middle.
Agreed, agreed. So what do you think, what are the things you do not recommend a new owner to do concerning staff? We always advise them, don't come in like a bull in the china shop. If you're going to make changes, make them slow, make them gradual. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's the first thing. Making especially large changes quickly.
Mhm.
That's one way to disenchant everybody right out of the gate.
Mhm.
Then, if you either hide or sugarcoat things that people need to know,
Mhm.
that's also something that a newer owner coming into any business when they're taking on people that currently exist, they know that those people have the majority of the experience in that business for what it was. And if they're not in tune with that and they try to either hide information or sugarcoat information, that's something I don't recommend. And then the final thing I wouldn't recommend is disregarding anybody's ideas, thoughts, feelings. Take everything into consideration. Even if you feel you have the most perfect business plan, still being open to different ideas, different thoughts, and entertaining those things. It makes people feel valued and heard, which we talked about. And then the other thing it does is it may give you something that you didn't even think about for that type of business.
Mhm. And when people feel comfortable, they'll be open and honest and they'll spill their guts.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a term out there called psychological safety.
Mhm.
And basically the nuts and bolts of it is, are people truly comfortable to speak up? And if they are they fully telling the truth?
Mhm.
And on the other end of that, how do we get people comfortable with that level of honesty and open communication?
Mhm.
That's
Totally
huge.
agree. I agree. What do you think the best way for a new owner would be to create relationships with the staff members
Constant, constant checking in slash meeting with everybody, um,
individually?
individually and collectively.
Mhm.
The greatest thing about all the things we have available to us through technology, we could start with things like anonymous surveys and work up from there. Definitely one-on-one meetings with
Mhm.
the team, with the staff, with all the players in the game, no matter who they are, no matter what position they have. And then collectively staying consistent with the values, the culture goals, the message of the company, staying consistent with that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. How long do you recommend before the new owner makes changes in the business?
Well, this really is a case by case basis. If it's small changes, something of the sort of, we're going to change the paint on the walls. Those are things that could probably happen pretty quickly. When it comes to big structural or systematic changes, Let's say like we'll talk about old school beauty industry. Old school beauty industry was a written appointment book. And fortunately, probably 98% of us are, into technology and that sort of thing. However, some of those pieces are big deals to people depending on how long they've been part of them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no magic bullet as far as what is the time frame. Look at the size of the change and the amount of impact it's going to have both on the team and the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you could decide, okay, there are some bigger changes. We're going to ramp up to that by little bits of education here and there. For the paint on the walls or for new furniture or something like that, we could probably do that tomorrow.
Right. Right. Are there any resources, of course, outside of our company that buyers and sellers can tap into for help with staff and business acquisition?
Well, for business acquisition, you are the top of the top.
Okay.
You are the first resource. I will say this. For resources, I encourage people to look to books that have researched information rather than gaining the opinions, thoughts of everybody else around them. I know in certain industries, we all lean on industry people for information. Actually, the best resources are the general resources from outside the industry. So I actually have a short list of books that I would recommend to people just to get them on board with not only making the announcement like we're talking about today, but even moving the business further with the team you have or the team that you don't have yet. Do you want me to talk about any of those books at all?
I mean, sure. List off a couple, please.
Okay, just real quick, The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson. This is a book on creating psychological safety and people being comfortable with speaking up. There's The Attributes by Rich Diviney. And basically, that's what reveals the hidden drivers of optimal performance for a team. There's No Fail Meetings by Michael Hyatt. That's basically hosting productive meetings and productive communication internally and externally. The five dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni. That's basically real team building, not team building going to a show or anything like that, like real solid team building. And then the last one I would recommend is called Culture Renovation by Kevin Oakes. And again, this is real culture building in a company, not culture of, hey, we have donuts every Friday.
Right.
So those would be resources that I would recommend, along with podcasts and, all those other things that are available to us, but make sure they're researched more than they are opinion.
Right. I agree. And stay out of Facebook groups, right?
Well, stay out of Facebook groups for ideas on how to build your business.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the advice you're given or the opinions you're giving are from people who truly may not be successful, or it works for their company and your company's something different.
Right. I love the book about the culture building because that's, that goes on for ever. Truthfully, the culture of a beauty business is super important.
And that gets talked about all the time. Oh, our culture, our culture, our culture. But when you look at it, they're talking about culture from like, we're having fun, or we're a good group of people, or we're nice human beings, which is all good. But the real culture, true culture, is how you walk into the business every day, even on your worst day. That's true culture. So that culture renovation book, that was massively enlightening to me and a lot of my clients that have read it.
Very cool. Well, and I'm sure it's available on audio in case anybody's not necessarily a reader. Super helpful. That's about it for my questions. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think this was phenomenal. The questions you asked, those are a lot of the tough questions that people either buying the business and or exiting the business kind of think about but really don't either have or reach out to the resources that could actually answer those. So great job, Susan. Those are phenomenal questions.
Thank you. We deal with it a lot. And so I thought, it's always good to get outside opinions. People probably get tired of listening to me.
Just be sure none of this is my opinion. This is all I do everything on research, factual information, and experience. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. If you need guidance as a leader in your business, Rob is really one of my top recommendations for a service-based business. Rob, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such a great conversation. How can people get a hold of you if they would like to work with you?
Well, thank you for having me on this, Susan. You know, I absolutely adore you and I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. The easiest way to reach me is through my website, which is coachingforsmallbusinesses.com.
Very cool. If you'd like help in telling your salon staff you've sold the business, reach out to me or to Rob. Links to reach Rob will be in the description of this video. And if you need help selling your beauty business or you'd like to chat with one of our team members about selling, contact Salon Spot Connection. Links in the description to get a hold of me or to chat with one of our brokers in our area. Thank you for watching. Best of luck in all of your business adventures.